Obviously, I've been listening to the comments, the passionate comments this morning, and I'd like to acknowledge something off the bat. While I don't agree with many of the comments that have been made, I will agree with the theme or the comment that this is not a perfect solution. As I think people are aware, the shelter system is under pressure right now. It's full for all intents and purposes. The women's sector runs in the high 90s. I believe the men's sector in the mid-90s in terms of capacity. The city has set forward a target of a 90% occupancy rate, and that is done so that we can ensure the safety and frankly the life of Torontonians who are low income and homeless. Because when we have a shelter system that runs at occupancy levels where it is currently at, that is not assured. We need adequate emergency shelter space in the city. I agree. Yes, this isn't the ideal solution. We need more housing. Unfortunately, we're not building enough housing, and that doesn't sit with the city alone. That sits with the provincial government and the federal government. Progress is going to be made in that area, and that we can build the type of solutions, transitional housing, supportive housing that many people have spoken to. Good housing access services are needed. And I would cite the recent Hostels to Homes program that the city has initiated, but I would really encourage the councillors who are here this morning to think about housing first as a solution as we move forward. More of it needs to be done, and if it is done effectively and instituted effectively, it can alleviate occupancy pressure in the shelter system. With regards to services in this shelter, the Toronto Alliance has a subgroup, many of whom are health practitioners, physicians, psychiatrists from St. Michael's Hospital, and experts in the field who are working with city staff to ensure that there will be adequate services, not for the community, but for the men, however many there are, who move into this shelter. So that is underway. We now have a project to focus that group on, and I'm confident that there will be adequate services for those men when that shelter's opened.
Could you elaborate a bit about the Toronto Alliance, what sort of services they can help provide for the men going into a shelter?
Yeah, the Alliance is a group of now about 120 people who have an interest in reducing and ending homelessness in the city. There is a particular subgroup of about 15 people who are extremely interested in transition planning for the George Street redevelopment, but more generally for the shelter system, and ensuring that as shelters are moved or redeveloped, that there are adequate services within those shelters to meet need. This is an emergency shelter, and the key service need in an emergency shelter is housing access and support. And I believe the city has addressed that adequately. But in addition to that, the Toronto Alliance members will specifically be including people from the health sector with a high degree of expertise who will be looking at what is needed there and how it can be delivered. I'm not saying it's not a concern, it is, but we've got a year to work on it, and I'm confident with the people we have around the table that something good can be done.